The next question here is copying work a valid strategy? They do not mean plagiarism. Rather, they mean, do you think, or rather, their name DXM, do you think there is any benefit in writing or copying large amounts of text in your target language? The scriptorium technique was created by Alexander Argales, and the basic idea is to read a sentence in your target language, look up any unknown words and analyze the grammar until you fully understand the sentence, and write it down, preferably by hand, and read it out loud to yourself as you do it. Mm-hmm. The first part of this is just the familiar approach of intensive reading, but the writing down part is intriguing to me. The act of writing forces you to pay attention to every single little detail in the sentence, down to the letter and punctuation as you try to reproduce it.
Yeah, I think writing something by hand can definitely assist with memory. This is something that, depending on the way you do it, can have benefits or not. And there have been different research studies that demonstrate this. So there are research studies that show that if you write something down, it does help with memory. But what they find is that if you just don't think about the thing that you're writing down, if you are just like listening to somebody and just writing exactly what they say, that process basically just bypasses your critical thought entirely. And so people do not remember what they wrote down and the notes they took. Like stenographers are not paying attention to the word or to the meaning of what they're doing. They're just writing down what the actual transcript. They're a conduit for the written into the spoken text. And so the research that I've seen shows that if you spend the time to summarize in your own words, that actually really improves your recollection of the content and the ideas. In what you're describing, you're going through a very deliberate, conscious process of trying to break down the language, and then you are using copying as a last step to make sure that you caught everything and to solidify the memory with a physical action. And that I could totally imagine having benefit. I personally have not done that, so I can't really speak from experience. But I don't think that it's harming anything. That being said, if you were just, reading a text and just jotting things or writing exactly the same words without actually thinking about it or looking things up or whatever else, that would not be a particularly useful exercise, in my opinion.
So it has to be the intensive reading, plus you're also just writing it down bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do something quite similar, actually, with when I read with a tool called Loot that I'm really enjoying. It's a lot like Link, but what it does is it makes me look at every single word and basically put it into my dictionary. I'm building my own dictionary. And so every single different conjugation I connect to a head word, to the parent word, every single little piece I look at and think about because it's either highlighted or I already know it, right? So it seems to be a very similar thing where it's intensive reading plus, right? There's something else that you're doing to like save stuff and build up a database, I guess, rather than having physical notebooks full of stuff. I'm building something that I'm using as a reader, more or less. Sure. And so that I'm really enjoying. So probably this sounds like a useful thing.
Yeah, and Bree on our team has recently been doing a lot of writing, but if I recall correctly, she's listening to sentences and then transcribing them by hand. And she is finding that it is quite useful because it forces her to identify like particles that are missing or the correct grammar. And I do think transcription is actually quite a useful practice because it forces you specifically for identifying holes in your grammar. Because if you listen to something and you can't reproduce it, then it's an indication that you don't actually have the mental model of the language to reproduce a grammatically correct sentence from a piece of audio.
Right.
And I was actually recently talking to the CEO of the app Nonsense, and he said that he was telling me about this approach to language proficiency testing, where it is just a call and response of I'm going to say a sentence and then you should repeat that sentence back to me. And it starts very simple, but then eventually the sentences get more and more complex. And if you don't have enough language ability to parse that sentence, understand it, and enough grammatical ability to understand the way it's supposed to be structured, you're not going to be able to reproduce the sentence exactly. So transcription and exact sentence repetition and is a good indication and a good practice exercise for specifically, I would say, for grammar.
Yeah. That's also what that style of reading has really helped me notice, is how those words like interact. I've also heard similar complaints from lots of people studying basically every language, where it's like, what do these little bits do? What are they doing here? Because if you are just listening, you're not really forced to confront them. You don't need to look them in the face and say, why are you here? Sort of thing. Or what are you doing to change the subtle meaning of the sentence?
Yeah, you've got like the personal in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And like half the time when you're talking, people just drop that entirely. Like you don't hear it. But writing, you absolutely need it.
Yeah. There are lots of things like that are just correct, right? But native speakers often hear them, and like yada yada yada. The other thing that I like about this sort of idea is like how it helps you focus. There's several things that we talk about in the process that I think aren't strictly necessary in terms of tools, but they're really good for channeling your focus. And so if you're writing things down, you're like I said, you're forcing yourself to look at those things, even if the actual writing maybe isn't the most important piece. The fact that you're focusing and putting attention on these things is very useful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, as you know, there's a lot of language learning advice out there, which can make it kind of overwhelming and difficult to actually get going on your own learning. If you feel like you're struggling to figure out language learning, you're not alone. It's an extremely complicated process with tons of different steps. If you're looking for a step-by-step guide to create the perfect language learning routine for you, then you have to check out our new course. We spent thousands of hours designing a simple and straightforward process that you can use to create your own personalized language routine that actually works. We understand that every learner is different and that you have to roll with the punches and adapt. Every day for 30 days, I walk you through everything you need to know to build an effective learning routine, no matter your circumstances. We give you the advice and resources you need to ensure your success, so you don't have to waste time looking for stuff to do and can focus on learning. And if any questions do come up, don't worry. We are always there to answer any questions and clear up confusion. And it's all backed by our 90-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If, for whatever reason, something's not quite working for you, we insist you get every penny back. It's time for you to stop wishing that you could learn a second language. It's time to become the master of your language learning journey. Check out the link below to get instant access and start your journey today.